Welcome, everybody. I'm Dr. Fawad Taj. I'm one of the past presidents of our chapter here in Northeast Ohio. We work under the banner of UPNA. We're one of the 32 chapters of UPNA. And from time to time, we've been doing these webinars to help not only the local medical students, but medical students across U.S. and international medical graduates. This has been a team effort. Just basic ground rules. Please keep yourself muted during the presentation. We'll have about 15-20 minute presentation by our presenters. We will take questions in the end. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we will read them out. Try to focus your questions on the topic that we're covering today.
Great. So Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We all gather here today because of our joint passion, which is to help those who come after us, inshallah. You all are the pride of our nation and the future of our nation. And uh, our hope is that hopefully we can give back in some way or another, and hopefully inspire others and help others learn from our journeys. Today we're joined by faculty members across Northeast Ohio and Pennsylvania, who are members of the UPNA-NEO, the Association of Pakistani Physicians of Pakistani Descent in North America, the Northeast Ohio chapter, which we started just about 2 years ago, but alhamdulillah have come quite far, and at least particularly the efforts and the magnitude of our efforts and the effects that they've had, alhamdulillah, we're very blessed to have such great members and great faculty. And one of our goals is to foster education and to be able to help those here in the US who are of Pakistani descent applying to residency, and those back home in Pakistan and around the world who are applying to residency, with a focus, of course, on helping our Pakistani descent graduates. But if this can be beneficial to anyone else, we'd be honored, and it's a pleasure. So, as many of you know, this is a series that we started, led by the CME Committee, the Continuing Medical Education Committee of UPNA-NEO. And I'd like to thank Dr. Shahzad Raza, who is my CME co-chair of the UPNA-NEO CME Committee, Dr. Fawad Taj, who's the founding president of the UPNA-NEO organization, and all the other faculty members and planning committee who many of them have joined here today, including Dr. Faiz Anwar, Dr. Shahzad Reza, Dr. Mohammed Ghazamfar Hussain, Dr. Saima Ahmed, and Dr. Reem Ahmed, and all the other faculty who've really made this possible. And thank you for lending your time and your words of wisdom. So as many of you know, this is a three-part session. We did one last week on the 21st of June, which was the residency match blueprint. I've shared the link here for those who weren't able to join. Even if you were able to join, I'm sure there's great things to look back. I've listened back to it as well and found it very helpful. Today is part two, in which we'll be talking about crafting your residency portfolio. We'll focus on personal statement, securing an ideal letter of recommendation, and what that should look like. And we'll talk about some do's and don'ts in the residency process. And we'll have a panel discussion with Q&A at the end. And then next week, inshallah, or maybe later in July, we'll have a third part, which will talk about choosing programs, how to ace the interviews, and going through how to choose the best programs that are right for you, and even the NRMP matching process. So stay tuned for that as well. Today's agenda is crafting your residency portfolio. So I will be talking about creating an impactful personal statement. My name is Abbas Karal. I am an assistant professor at the Cleveland Clinic Lerner College of Medicine and a proud graduate of Islamic International Medical School from Pakistan. Also did my residency training here in the US in internal medicine, followed by neurology, and then fellowships in vascular neurology and neuroimmunology, and currently serve on the recruitment committee for the Vascular Neurology Fellowship, and have been involved in recruitment efforts for both residents and fellows throughout my career. Then we'll be joined by Dr. Ghazamfar Hussain and Dr. Reem Ahmed for the ideal LOR, and I'll introduce them at the end of my session. and then we'll talk about the do's and don'ts in the pursuit of residency, which will be a panel discussion. So let's get started, inshallah. So quickly, just in the interest of time, what is a personal statement, right? And why is it so important? So it is your story, your life's journey put onto one page for the reviewers to be able to understand where you come from, why you're choosing this specialty, what makes you a great fit, and why should they choose you. It's your chance to convey who you are. And you'll see during my slides, it's going to be all about you and self, right? And this is where you need to convey who you are beyond your CV. And that's why we often say, do not iterate your CV. People are already reading that long ERAS application and your ERAS CV. This should be when reviewers look at your personal statement, they should be able to find information that complements your CV, complements your ERAS application, and gets them to learn more about you. It allows programs to connect with you before they meet you. This is often sometimes personal statements are a document that oftentimes people will look at briefly when they choose to select who they want to interview. But most importantly, I noticed that we look at personal statements on the day of interview also, right before we're about to meet with someone, to go through and try to connect with them personally right before we meet them as well. It's where programs also try to learn about your personal journey and how you chose your chosen specialty that you're applying to. This also allows them to assess your suitability to the field and particularly not just the field that you're applying to, but their specific program, and understand your career goals and what makes you a good fit for their program. So these are the kind of components that should be addressed. And there are really three components. If I want you to take away one of the most important slides from here is what are the three main components that reviewers need to know by the end of reading that personal statement is three questions. Why this specialty? What skills make you a good fit for this specialty? And why this program, right? These are the three most important things. If you read through your personal statement, or if you give someone your personal statement and say, I want you to, by the end of this, I want you to be able to tell me, did I address these three questions appropriately or not? And if they think you have not, or you yourself think you haven't addressed those questions by the end of that personal statement, it needs more work. So how do we structure a strong personal statement? So there's really three parts: the intro paragraph, and I'll jump to the conclusion paragraph, and in between about three paragraphs max that are the meat of your personal statement. So the introduction, it's very important to again make it personable, make it you, right? So start with a story or a hook or theme that sets the tone for the entire personal statement. That then, as you go through the meat of the personal statement, you're explaining your life experiences and how they tie to that specialty, why you're interested in that specialty, your skill set, and why you choose that field and that program particularly. But then in the end, in the conclusion, you want to tie it back to that theme, that hook, that theme that you started, that story that kindled in you the interest in why you spent the last 2 decades pursuing a career that you wanted to choose and why you're applying to this residency program. So the middle part particularly we'll spend more time on, but the middle part usually should talk about why the specialty, what your personal attributes are, and the skill set that you've garnered over the years that make you a good fit for that specialty. And in the conclusion, you want to summarize your future goals and what you bring to a program. And we'll go through some examples. So crafting the intro piece. I see that one thing commonly as international medical graduates we do is we are often putting forth a lot of generic themes, things that's like the same old story. Remember, people who are reviewing applications have been doing these for years. They review thousands of applications a year. They want something that stands out, right? And you want to make yourself someone that's personable, that stands out, that they can remember, oh, this is that person who really had an interesting story. So avoid things like, oh, I've always wanted to be a doctor, or medicine is a blend of science and caring. Sure, but how does that make you different, right? How does that make it tied to you? And so you want to really use a compelling moment or personal story. Oftentimes people will use a personal experience, some personal story, family member, things like that, something that really kindled in you the interest of becoming a physician and choosing that field. And it really sets the theme for the rest of your statement. So then the meat of the personal statement, the middle 2 to 3 paragraphs, should talk about why this specialty, right? And this is where it's really important that you be specific. And we'll talk about how it's important not to just praise the field. Don't just talk about, oh, I love internal medicine. Internal medicine offers XYZ, and that's what really attracts me. Rather, connect it to your experiences, right? I should be able to read a personal statement and say, this is this person. If I'm reading, Dr. Fez Anwar's statement when he was a resident, I'm sure I can tell this is Fez, right? This is who this person is. Or yourself, right? You or your peers should be able to say, this is exactly you. And you want to explain your strengths and goals and how they align with that specialty. But more importantly, you want to demonstrate it all through thoughtful self-reflection. It's important that you highlight your personal strengths and experiences, right? We oftentimes, I think, as international medical graduates, we hesitate we hesitate to market ourselves well, right? And I often say, don't undersell yourselves. SubhanAllah, like we as international medical graduates, the journeys that we often come through, and even local American graduates these days, I mean, the amount, it's not just, a undergrad med school and or just do undergrad and apply to med school and then you're into residency. There is so much more. The competition is so high that people are even here in the US and internationally. There's so much more personal experiences. There's additional degrees, there's additional research and other things that we do to really make it to where we are and for residency programs. Don't undersell yourself, right? I feel that as international medical graduates, we're on two opposite extremes. Either we undersell ourselves too much or we're overselling ourselves too much. Both are not right. You definitely shouldn't oversell yourself. That doesn't look good. But don't undersell yourself either, right? Emphasize the skills and traits that you've developed along your experiences and why they make you a great fit for that specialty. And it's important to reflect on your personal experiences, but also show growth and self-awareness and show that I am here to learn and there's so much more and this is the path and trajectory that I want to grow towards. So here's a quick example. I just want to take about 15 seconds. I'm not going to read through this, but I want my audience to kind of just read through this paragraph about why this specialty. Now let me show you something. So this is decent, but does it really show much of me, right? Or me as an applicant versus how about this? So see how it's so much more personal, right? So, I've highlighted in red where I show that this is my personal experience. And again, sorry, this is not my personal statement. It's an example. But I'm showing here how you can see in red we've highlighted where it ties into the applicant's personal experience. You can see in green they talk about a specific case or experience. You can see in blue where it actually shows growth and self-reflection of this applicant and how they're aware of, they're self-reflecting, they want to grow, and this is how they grew so far, and this is what they want to grow further. We also in brown show why this specialty in this one paragraph, and also in purple, what skills of the applicant really make them a good fit for that specialty. So, compared to the previous example, this really gives you a lot more personal touch, and it addresses a lot of things that programs want to know from you. And then they want to know what makes you an asset to a program, right? And it's important to go beyond generic traits like, oh, I'm very hardworking, or I am very empathic, or, I I'm very competent, or I my knowledge is great. No, you want to mention unique perspectives, skills, or experiences that really framed you, right? And frame your contributions in terms of value, value to the team, value to science, value to that program. And make sure you also, by the end of the personal statement, the reviewer can actually see what your long-term vision is, right? While allowing room to grow. Include goals like, oh, I want to go into academic medicine, or I'm interested in research, or I want to be able to serve underserved populations, or I'm interested in medical education. A hint, a sentence or two is always great because it helps programs identify, particularly academic programs. Is this someone who is interested in, this is their career track? But, however, make sure you have things to support it, right? Like if someone is saying, and I'll show you an example, for example, if someone is saying, oh, they're really interested in research and education, well, their CV should be able to back them up that they have those skills, right? And make sure you're demonstrating purpose and planning. In the interest of time, this is a quick last example I want to share. This is a kind of a second last and last paragraph, just as an example, which something that we can think about when we're kind of summarizing the theme and conclusion. And I want you to just, for 10 seconds, read through this. So just quickly, in these two paragraphs, as the applicant concludes, they talk about why the specialty conclusively, and again, bringing it back and tying it back to the theme which they started at the very beginning, right? And the tools and skill sets that they've built. So again, if this person is saying, I'm interested in academic medicine, I want to become an academic neurologist, I care about patient care, but also research and fostering evidence-based medicine. Well, their application shows that they have a master's in public health or some degree in epidemiology and clinical research, or they've done some courses and they've published well. And you can't not have those things to back you up and say, oh, you know what, I want to match to one of the highest academic programs and I want to go on to do like a research career. Obviously, that won't make sense. So you want to make sure that you're building upon what you have in your CV, but again, giving it a personal touch, telling your story, telling them why the specialty, the tools and skill set that you have, and again, your contributions in terms of value and show self-reflection, planning, and career goals in the end as you conclude. Common cliches to avoid, I want to help people. I've wanted to be a doctor since childhood. This specialty chose me. Medicine blends science and art, et cetera, et cetera. Instead, share specific examples and reflective insights, right? So it's okay to elaborate more. So, for example, instead of saying, I want to help people, which, lacks depth, you want to show how you want to help people through so a specific story or explain what kind of patient care energizes you, for example, right? You want to also, like, things to avoid. I've wanted to be a doctor since I was a child. I hear that, I read that often, right? But it's often overused and doesn't show maturity or reflection. Rather, focus on more recent conscious decisions or experience that really affirmed your commitment. I wanted to be an astronaut when I grew up. Maybe not a great decision, right? So then why did I choose medicine, etc. So re-solidifying why my life experiences or my recent kind of training experiences have really solidified that this is my calling. I'm a team player and hard worker. Everyone says that. Show how, right? Instead of just saying, this is who I am, show how, right? Give examples, personal examples that really can help the team understand that really this is a team player. Rather than labeling yourself as a team player or a hard worker, the reviewer should be able to look through your application or read through your personal statement and say, wow, this person is really committed, very dedicated. Lastly, I'll leave you with this quick tips for success. Someone who reviewed applications at Harvard for many years gave me this one example that really helped me. And they said, you as particularly international medical graduates, they have really impressive and long life journeys and stories to tell. And that is true. Sometimes both, these days, as I mentioned, students even here, they're entering the medical setup and medical environment even from high school. There's just the competition is so high that you have to start so early. but also particularly IMGs. I mean, we have such diverse experiences. It's hard to put everything in one page, but it's very important that we keep it clear, concise, and authentic, and restrict it to one page max, a page and a paragraph. Nothing longer than that. Don't reiterate your CV. This is a common mistake we see. Rather share insights and growth. And this is a time also to subtly address any gaps or deviations. For example, someone started a residency in general surgery in their home country and now is applying to internal medicine. That's strange, right? Or why is there this gap in 3 years? Well, maybe something happened, and real things are happening, unfortunately. Someone mentioned that, a student from Lebanon, there was a war in their country, right? And this for 2 years, they could not finish their education. And so many, sometimes things come up in the application. If there are any gaps or deviations in your, or any red flags, just make sure you address those in your personal statement. Have mentors and peers review it repetitively. And I'm often asked, is it okay to use large language models like ChatGPT, et cetera? I think, particularly for those for whom English is a second language, it is certainly fine to use it for editing, flow, and grammar, but do not use it for content. Trust me, there are ways that reviewers can really tell if it's an LLM written or if it's personal. Last thoughts: just make sure you're genuine, honest, personal, and intentional. And remember, your story is your strength. Please use it wisely. Good luck to you all. Thank you all so much. With that, I will introduce the next speaker. It is my pleasure to introduce, and we'll take questions, answers at the end. So if you can please in the chat put any questions, and we'll address that in the chat panel later on. It is my utmost pleasure to open up the next session, in which we'll be talking about securing strong letters of recommendation. Our first speaker is a great friend and colleague, Dr. Mohammed Ghazanfar Husnain, who is Assistant Professor and Associate Program Director of Internal Medicine at the Akron General Medical Center Internal Medicine Program. He'll be talking to us about securing strong letters of recommendation for residency application pertaining particularly to internal medicine. And then Dr. Rima Ahmed, who is a general surgeon at Allegheny General Hospital, will be talking to us about LORs in general surgery to give us kind of a mix of both medical and surgical specialties. Dr. Hussain, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Earl, and thanks for everyone who has helped in organizing this event. And everybody can see the slide here, securing strong LORs.
Yes, we can see that.
All right, excellent. So what I would request before I start, that if you can either scan the barcode or use menti.com to log into this presentation via your phone or your desktop or laptops. That will really help me hear from you as we go through the next 20 minutes through these slides. So we're at 11:24. Dr. Carroll, please remind me of the time if I'm going over. So please log into Menti. If you have any problem, please let me know or just write in the chat. So the menti.com, if you use the browser, that will be more stable compared to if you scan the barcode. So we'll move on. I hope everybody logs in as we go through the presentation, and I will ask you to participate as you go. And that will be very important for me to pace and focus on the things which really will be helping you. So securing a strong LOR is a skill, and it has a strategic approach. So I have divided this talk into 4 parts. And the first part will cover why LOR matters. And to understand what a strong LOR is and how it looks like. So I will share a couple of examples of a weak and a strong LOR. And the second part will do who is your ideal letter writer for residency application, irrespective of the specialty you're applying. And then we'll go through a framework, which we have devised. It's called STRONG framework. Like it has 6 components, and we'll talk about that. And then lastly, how to effectively, professionally, with gratitude, communicate with your referees or those who are writing letters for you. So these will be the 4 parts. So before we move on, I would like, I think 31 people have logged on to Menti. If you are still logging in, please use this menti.com on the top and write the voting code, and you can enter into the. So if securing a LOR, strong LOR, the only word you want to remember from this presentation is strong, then what was your possible level? All right, so we are seeing, I think we have 10 responses. I see mostly between rookie and semi-pro. We have one most valuable player, yeah. All right, we'll kind of wait for maybe 10 more seconds and then we'll move on. Please feel free to participate. It's anonymous. I cannot see or judge who is rookie and who is semi-pro. It's just to give me an idea which areas I need to focus on, more basic or more advanced. So I see that trend is more towards rookie. So I will be very basic. So I will define everything as we go. I think we'll move on for those who voted, and I have a good idea what. In your opinion, the next question I have for you to hear from you, what you think, what makes a strong and effective LOR? So feel free to type, and you will be, as I move the slides, you will see on your phone or on your devices. Just feel free to write what you think, what makes an LOR strong. Specific, excellent. So, which means that the letter writer should have specificity into what they're writing. It should be personalized, excellent. With examples, awesome. Personalized. We'll wait for at least 10 responses. Leadership roles, excellent. That comes from CV or direct, if person knows you very well. Very specific and targeted. I think these are excellent, excellent ideas. Authentic and personalized. That is, a complete, not the complete list, but most important features. So let's sort out these responses. So most of you said personalized. So that response is absolutely right. Specific with examples is another thing, and the other responses are more more generic. Thank you so much for participating. Now it gives me an idea that you already know there should be personalized and specific. So now we will learn how to make it specific and personalized, what we can do for the letter writers to help get the letter strong and effective. If somebody reads, so we'll move on to the part 1, which is why LOR is important and what weak and strong LOR looks like. So before we do anything in life, we want to see what the target or goal looks like. So if goal is to get a strong LOR, then we need to identify what strong LOR is. So for example, if you really want to buy a car, you want to know which kind of car I want. So once you know, then you provide the resources to yourself to achieve that. Oh, you want to purchase the car, you want to lease the car, you want to finance the car. So you know what I need to do to get to that point, from point A to point B. So that's where recognizing the importance of LOR is important. So this is a very important slide. So it is evidence-based, and it is directly from AAMC and academic medicine, some of the articles and JGME. So I cannot overemphasize this. However, program directors view letter, 86% of the program directors in one of the study cite that LOR is a factor for interview selection. And with the change in step 1 as pass or fail, which step 2 has been saved yet, but it has become more important to distinguish candidates from one another. Previously, we heavily relied on USMLE step 1, more than even step 2. And now this pass fail, so LOR have become even more important. And in the coming years, it will get more and more important. And you have learned this concept last session, holistic review of the candidates. So on average, on rough estimate, around 120 billion people have lived ever on this earth, just a rough estimate. And I bet you, every single individual is different. And if you really want to challenge me, we can talk offline. So that individuality needs to come out through your application, your personal statement, and LORs are one of the sources. And the LOR helps the letter reader, which is the end user of your letter, the residency leadership, program directors, to set apart you from others, either positively or negatively. And then LOR can provide the objective and subjective evidence of things which are not in your CV. How you talk to the patient when you are in a clinical environment, how you work within a diverse set of team or interprofessional team, how you talk to your juniors or seniors that are attending. So these are all things, and when you have problem at hand, what you do to solve that problem. Are you practicing really an evidence-based clinical practice? So these are all important things. So again, I will not, let me see, we have to get a little bit more quicker. So these are the 5 important things which program directors from pediatric surgery and internal medicine think that letter should contain. And that is the ideal letter. The depth of interaction with the applicant, specific behaviors, of course, with examples, description of the abilities, the skills they can do, and summative statement at the end to summarize what they have written in the letter, in the body of the letter. And then inclusion of personal stories and involvement in the program and hospital activities. If you see down at the bottom, advanced degrees don't matter in the LOR. And if letter is too short or too long, that does not matter. Participation in research in an LOR is less important, but because it's already available in the rest of the application. So this is an example. I will give you 30 seconds or so. This is an example of a weak letter. And I will share with you why it's weak so that we can go on to the rest of the presentation, because it does not show the depth of interaction, the context of the interaction, and even does not comment on in what capacity this letter writer has worked exactly. And it includes praise without example, and summary is not consistent with what is written in the body. I will give you 30 seconds or 20 seconds to just quickly review. Thank you. We'll move on. I see a lot of thumbs up. So this is an example of a strong LOR. And for anonymity purpose, I use the name Gen Z. So all of you are probably in that category, most of you. And I would like you to read the first paragraph and the last paragraph on this, and then appreciate how it was different from the letter you have just seen as a weak example. Let's give 10 seconds for each paragraph more. All right, I just few more seconds. So it contains the examples of why the letter writer is thinking why he's a good team player, or what kind of interaction he had with the team and with the patient, what exactly they have done to demonstrate their interest in learning. I will move on to the last. So I would like you to read the first 2 lines and the last summary of this letter. So if I am a letter reader, I'm reading the letter, I'm interested how the letter writer summarizes that it contains the differential comments. So that what the program directors are looking for, so that they can make a judgment about the LOR. paragraph is summary of all the information being provided, and then making a judgment that he functioned at a level of an intern. It means that if I'm a PD or APD or program leadership, I would be very happy to have him if I trust the letter writer, what is written with examples. So if he comes here, that he will be a very competent superstar resident. And then his top 5–10%. So that's, just to give a judgment, differential judgment. So we'll move on to so let's pause and kind of a recap a little bit. A strong LOR should have the depth of interaction between the writer and the applicant, should examples, and should not be only praise. It should include the stories, it should include the personal attributes, and it should include what they have seen in the clinical learning environment. And then it should summarize strongly and differentiate you from others. So in part 2, we'll identify who should be your letter writer, and it's very self-explanatory that the letter writer should be the person who knows you the best or knows you very well. Depending on if you're applying in a community setting, then it has to be a clinical work-related LOR. If you're applying to a program, which is a university program with research, then you need if you have a research mentor or you worked in as a research fellow, that you need one letter from research so that they can testify to your skills in that environment. So a university a full professor who barely knows you may not be the best person. And it could be a like academic hospitalist who's good in teaching, and maybe they have given you good feedback, and maybe that could be your ideal letter writer who could write things we have just mentioned, what a strong LOR looks like. So just quickly, your participation is requested again. So when should you get a commitment from a faculty for an LOR? So that is a question I would like you to answer. And in your opinion, what's the ideal time? And that will help us, So this is just speaking with the attending to get a commitment. It is not the planning phase of the LOR, like, oh, you're going to rotation and you ask, yep. So I think the trend is towards end of the rotation or right after the strong performance. That is absolutely right. That could be the best time. However, the planning starts before even your rotation. So you know about the attending, you know about who are the best teachers, who will be get you more involved in patient care, depending on you're doing observership, externship, acting internship, or your MS3. So crafting request, it's very important to say explicitly that I'm requesting is for a strong letter recommendation. So this phrase helps, as recommended by AAMC, helps with a couple of things. If a potential writer cannot write a strong, they may decline. That is more valuable than writing a lukewarm letter, which will not be helpful. And the second thing is, it will help them assess you and be a strong advocate if they agree. And then one of the sample phrases in the course, I will mention that you will have a free access, to the course for 3 days. And that is mostly will tell you all the skills, phrases, or practical examples, and it will elaborate on what I'm just describing. So this is a phrase, a sample phrase that would you be comfortable writing me a strong letter recommendation for my application. So that would be one of the ways to ask. So navigating through, you already know the ERAS application cycle, but by June, you need to know who are your letter writers and you have already the commitment. And then you send them request, give them 4 to 6 weeks. All the faculty you work with will be busy. Nobody will be, or on vacation during summertime. If depending on their, vacation during summer, the faculty may not be fully available. So you need to give them 4 to 6 weeks minimum to write the letter. And then you remind them a couple of weeks before, and the last reminder, gentle. I will show you how we can do that in the course. It completely mentions, how you navigate through when people are not responding to you or when the letter is delayed. So that is, a common thing you want to see. So this is again when you're requesting. Direct approach is important during the rotation and the rotation, but if you have to send an email, you need to make sure you jog their memories about your interaction, the context, duration. You share your reflection, which is a weekly, reflection on your own performance, and share with them what you learned and based on all 6 competencies, and express your appreciation, acknowledge their time and support, and then clarify the purpose that you want a strong letter, and this is the deadline for that letter. So we'll move on to the third part, which is a strong approach. So this is a strong approach, which is selecting a right letter writer, time the request appropriately, always request for a strong letter, organize the material, which I show you in a sample email, a CV, personal statement, reflections, navigate with professionalism, and then give flexibility and have a backup plan. So by backup plan, I mean, so you need, most programs require 3 letters, and you can upload up to 4 letters to any program, but you need to have a backup. If some letters are delayed, you need to have a person who can write for you if you are not getting letters on time. So that is kind of more of a backup plan. And ideally, you should have letters from your clinical work. And if you have a research mentor or experience, and you think that the program you're applying to, is really an academic program, that may be very useful, 1 letter. So this is a strong approach. You will have the access to free course. You will have all what I have shown in summary here, all the approaches. The skill development is the theme of the course. So it will provide you examples and steps you need to do to be strong in your approach to securing a strong letter. So I will pause here for 20 seconds and show you, this is an example of Maya Johnson. The faculty agreed, a cardiology attending agreed to write a strong letter. And then this is how Maya Johnson approached Dr. Garcia with all the materials. It mentions all what has been attached, what is the deadline, and how it should be uploaded, and all those things. And it has all the information. And at the end is a gratitude for mentorship and also guidance during cardiology rotation. So that's very important to show gratitude. So we'll move on. Should I waive the access to see the letter LOR? Short answer is yes, because it's increased credibility, it meets academic expectation, it encourages candor, and then also follow the standard of practice. So it's part for professionalism and gratitude. So art of gratitude is very, very essential. So as I written in the first line, you will see in the course more, it's just not being polite. It's essential professional courtesy. It's a mandatory thing, in my opinion. And effective approaches could be, if somebody writes a letter, uploads, you need to send a thanks promptly. And a sincere email will work. And some old schools still write the handwritten cards and send it to your mentors if they're extraordinary, and then express genuine appreciation for their time and support. The clinical work is so busy. If they're writing to support your application, it is really a favor. And keeping the writers updated. Many faculty members enjoy hearing about your progress and outcomes. So it's very important that share your milestones, like when you start receiving interview invitations, inform them of match results, and then update them, where you are going ultimately for your residency. And if you don't match, even still, you need to inform them so that you keep in touch with them for the next application cycle. And this is a summary of all what you have. And in the end, so I'll skip this part in the interest of time. And I would like you to scan the code, and Dr. Taj will be sharing, or Dr. Carl will be sharing the link in the free course, access to free course. That is internal medicine. With intention to keep internal medicine in mind. But believe me, the feedback I have received who have completed this course, this applies to all specialties. Just you remove internal medicine, you will see that it is applicable to all. If you're planning to apply to neurology, pediatrics, surgery, you can still benefit from this course, or other specialties. So I will let you scan and save the link, and it will be shared on the in the chat also. With that, I will thank you, and I will be happy to answer questions at the end in the QA session.
Dr. Hussain, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. We are joined with by Dr. Rima Ahmed, who is a general surgeon and will offer us surgical perspectives. Dr. Ahmed, if you can maybe unmute yourself and turn on your screen, that would be awesome. And really, Dr. Ahmed doesn't have slides, but has amazing and very insightful perspectives to share. We also have Dr. Saima Arshid, who is an Associate Program Director of Internal Medicine at Fairview Hospital of Cleveland Clinic and Assistant Professor of the Cleveland Clinic Lerner College of Medicine. And others I want to just introduce since we're talking about other faculty on the panel. We have several other amazing faculty here. Dr. Faiz Unwid, who's Professor of Medicine and Oncology at the Cleveland Clinic Taussig Center and is director of the lymphoma service. Thank you, Dr. Faiz, for joining. I'm not sure if Dr. Shahzad Reza was able to join. Dr. Fawad Taj, also Associate Professor of Psychiatry at University Hospital of Case Western Reserve University. Dr. Fawad Taj, if you're here and are able to provide some insights, that will be amazing as well. I want to hear from Dr. Ahmed first, and if you can please add on to what Dr. Hussain was saying in regards to surgical specialties and perhaps covering surgical specialties in general, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on and including me in this. I'm sorry I joined this group kind of late and last minute, so I don't have any slides, but definitely have some perspectives to go over about everything, but letters of recommendation in particular. Dr. Hussain's presentation was fantastic. He covered a lot of the basic general points that apply to basically any specialty, and surgery is no different from that. So I'll just go over a couple of things, kind of emphasize some of the points that he talked about, and then talk about some things that are specific to surgery in particular. To introduce myself, my name is Dr. Ahmed. I am a general surgeon at the Allegheny Health Network. I was an IMG. I did my medical school in Pakistan, came over here afterwards for residency. And did a surgery residency, transitioning from a preliminary to a categorical spot. And for the more kind of relevant thing, I also do currently write letters of recommendation, and we have written letters of recommendation that have gotten our medical students into surgery residency. So coming from that perspective, hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight into kind of what that's coming from. So just to emphasize some of the points that Dr. Hussain talked about, certainly, yes, you do want a very strong and a very specific letter of recommendation. You want it to come from somebody who's actually meaningfully worked with you, not just someone who's seen you around or you've been on a rotation with, but someone who you've actually had, conversations with about not only just clinical scenarios, but the direction of your kind of clinical course and the way that you expect your career to go, so that they have that kind of background on you. Just like he was saying, planning on who your letter writers are going to be before your interaction with them helps a lot, because then your interaction can be tailored that way. You can spend some time kind of trying to talk about them with that sort of thing, talk about them, about their career paths and how you expect your career path to go. And when you have those conversations with people, then they have the information to include in the letter of recommendation that really makes it a strong and personalized letter, rather than something just generic. Because every student will be on the wards, every student will participate in some sort of presentation or see some sort of patient that's maybe a little off or a little weird that they can write about. But if you have really kind of, if your letter writer can tell somebody else why you're interested in the field and why you are motivated for something, then that really implies that that letter writer has had a detailed relationship and conversation with you, and it just gives your letter a lot of credibility that they're speaking from a very specific relationship with you rather than as a general thing. Definitely, good idea to, kind of single out early that you do want a letter from somebody so that you can strike up that kind of more personal relationship. And asking at the right time is also really important. Dr. Hasnan alluded to that. If you're in a rotation with someone, you want to ask once they've gotten to know you a little bit so that they can tell you right off the bat, yes or no, I would be able to write a strong letter. I think you're somebody that I could throw my support behind. But you do want to ask them while you're still working with them, ideally. For example, when a student's on a 4-week rotation with me, the best time for them to ask me is literally like somewhere in week 3 or the beginning of week 4, so that for that last week that they're there, I can look at them from that perspective of like, okay, if I have to write a letter for this person, what am I putting in that letter? And to be honest, when someone asks me for a letter of recommendation, I write that in the first week or 2 after they're done rotating with me, because months down the line, I'm not going to remember specific things about them that are going to provide a strong letter. I'm going to end up writing really kind of like, I'm going to remember who they are, but I'm going to end up kind of putting together what I remember from what I am. So if you ask, I start sort of drafting that letter while they're still on rotation with me so that it can be specific. And you really want to give your letter writer the opportunity to do that. From who the letter should come from surgery in specific, it is important to have letters from surgical specialties. It doesn't necessarily have to be from the same surgical specialty you're going into. For example, if you're applying to urology or neurosurgery, all of your letters don't have to be from urologists or neurosurgeons. A general surgery letter will also be helpful because it sort of talks about similar skill set and similar mindset. But it is helpful to have letters from people who are in surgical specialties or adjacent specialties. That being said, the most important thing about all of these letters is how specific and strong they can be. If you have, for example, a stellar letter from somebody who's not in the surgical field or not that related to what you're doing, it can still add a lot of support to your application. If you have 4 letters that you're submitting and 3 of them are from surgical specialties, but you have a particular mentoring relationship with the dean of your medical college who happens to be a nephrologist or something like that, put their letter in there because they're an important person in your medical journey. If they can speak to who you are as a person, then the other 3 letters can talk about all of the surgical parts of it. And so it's not necessary, it would be a shame to exclude somebody who can give that, sort of strong backing to your application just on the basis of the fact that they're not coming from a surgical specialty. So don't hesitate about, but you really want to make sure that it is a strong and specific letter that will really add something different or that the other letters will not. If you have 3 or 4 strong surgical letters that you can use, always better to do that. The ideal letter writer is someone who your program knows, which is really, really difficult because you're applying obviously to a lot of programs. And even if you can't obviously tailor letters that way. But the stronger letters are from, so outside of being a strong and personalized letter, if you have a lot of different people that you've interacted with and you're trying to decide who would be the strongest letter writer, or if you're trying to target those people while you're on rotation with them, if you're applying to a certain program, for example, you're rotating somewhere, or you rotated there a couple of times, or you have done research somewhere and you're expecting that there's going to be a certain program that you want to target, having a letter writer from that program obviously goes a long way. People trust letters from people that they know or they're aware of more than they'll trust a weaker letter from someone they know than a stronger letter from someone potential that they don't know. you want your letters to be as strong as possible, but if you do have connections inside a program that you're interested in, definitely getting a letter from that institution helps. Getting a letter from a well-known surgeon that a lot of people know, who's, for example, if you are interested in colorectal surgery in specific and did a rotation or a research experience with somebody who is a leader in the field of colorectal surgery, having a letter from that person who's well known among that field will be very helpful. But again, you want to kind of balance that out. And that's where it's helpful that you have a slot for multiple letters. If, for example, that person's not going to give you as strong a letter, it may still be useful to include a letter from someone well known that maybe not that strong, but then you have to balance that out with very strong, very personalized letters from other people to kind of round all of that out. So sometimes it's certainly not as useful to have a letter from a big name institution or a big name person if what they say about you is not going to really add a lot. You can easily mention that you worked with that person on your CV and on your in your personal statement, and that'll provide the same strength if their letter is really not going to say anything specific. So don't feel obliged to get a letter from that person if you think that it's really not going to be a strong letter.
Dr. Ahmed, thank you so much for such wonderful insight. And I was actually going to pose a question to all of you, particularly Dr. Arshad, Dr. Ahmed, Dr. Anwar, Dr. Hussain. Is it better to have a weak letter from a very famous person or a strong letter from an average, maybe not so well-known person, but still someone who's very credible, like an associate program director or someone you've worked with?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer first since I'm speaking, but I'll give some time because it'd be nice to hear perspectives from everybody. But in my opinion, or my kind of experience with this, in the ideal scenario, you might have both. But if you're choosing between one of them, then I think it is definitely a better idea to have a strong letter from someone less known who can provide a lot of insight into you as a person rather than having a generic letter. There are very, very few scenarios in which a generic and brief letter helps anybody. It's got to be someone who's like literally world renowned for it to have any backing whatsoever. And that's going to be very rare. And like I said, a lot of that emphasis you can provide in your CV and personal statement as well. So you don't need their name to be on as a letter writer as well.
Agreed. Any other comments? Thank you so much.
I agree with Rima. Hi, I'm Dr. Arshad. I'm the Associate PD at Fairview. I agree with Rima completely. When you're writing a letter, you want to reach out to somebody who knows you. When we're looking at the letters, everybody's application looks the same eventually when you read like 200 applications. So when you're looking at a letter, you're looking for something that is specific. You want to have a general idea of the person. Is this person hardworking? Is this person personable? Is this person going to get along with their peers? So if you have somebody who knows you very well and you worked with them for many months or a year, that letter is much more impactful than a letter for somebody who you did like 1 week with. Anyone if they're very famous, but if they don't know you well, a letter from someone who knows you well, even if they're not the big name in that field, that holds much more weight. A personal letter obviously is much better than a generic than letter. So there's no doubt in that at all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Ahmed, in the interest of time, I just wanted to ask if you have any concluding comments before I open it up for the panel, please.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we're good on time. I only have just one thing to say that's a little bit more specific to surgery, and then anything else that we sort of missed out, we can definitely go over as part of the panel. I wanted to say for surgery in particular, I feel like a lot of people kind of try to have their letter writers include a lot about their technical skills of like they were in surgery and they know how to suture very well and things like that. But the truth is, in a program, when you're coming into a surgical program, we can teach you to operate. Where you're starting out from is only really going to make a very minor difference. What programs are looking for in general is someone who is reliable, someone who is easy to teach, someone who gets along well with everybody, and someone who progresses. So if they can demonstrate progression through the rotation, whether that's technically or medically or from a knowledge standpoint, that's way more important than, oh my gosh, this is the fastest suturing medical student I've ever seen. Because at the end of the day, that's not really what's going to matter as much to programs as your reliability and your bankability as a person and the ability that you have to learn while you're in the program. So that's for surgery. I think in particular that people feel like they have to put a lot into the technical aspect of it. It's really not as important as you'd think. So, yeah, happy to participate in the panel, and I'll turn over to Dr. Pearl, and we'll go from there.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been wonderful, and honestly, this is an area that we all are very passionate about, and we can talk hours for. But I value all of yours time and the commitment that you all have shown here today. I'm going to skip just briefly the do's and don'ts section because I really want to hear from you all. But I do want to talk about the do's and don'ts because I think it's very important for this audience to hear that, particularly from you all. But a question, just since we're on the theme of, letter writing, I wanted to open it up to our panel. Dr. Hussain, you mentioned, a lot of great components of the letter writing. Dr. Ahmed, thank you so much, particularly for focusing on the surgical aspects. I think they were very insightful, particularly you mentioning about the skills and how it's not so important to know about skills, because at the end of the day, we're going into a residency program to learn, right? No one's expecting that you're coming in with so many skills and strengths. But oftentimes, letter writers ask the requester to draft a letter of recommendation for them, right? And oftentimes I feel applicants kind of come to me for advice about, my letter writer has asked me to draft something for them. What do I write? I mean, it's hard. I mean, sometimes self-praise is difficult. For some, it's easy. Definitely not for myself. But I think it would be very helpful to hear when someone asks you go draft a letter, what do they really mean? And how far do you want to write about yourself, about your personal attributes, your strengths? Because particularly it's very difficult for someone, if someone gives me a letter draft, if I ask them to write a draft for me and they give me a letter that, is a letter that Dr. Hussain showed like from A to Z and says, oh, this is amongst the top 5-10% of students I've worked with in my career. I'm like, wow, this person is really stepping their bounds. Like, this is not for them to say. This is for me to say. So, any advice that you can give about drafting a letter of recommendation? And I'd love to start with Dr. Hussain.
Yeah, luckily, all those nuances in letter writing has been covered in the course. So I don't have to redo it. All of you have access to the course, and this particular question has been answered in more detail, why you should not write a letter for yourself. So it covers all the aspects of when somebody asks you to do it. It means that they don't know you enough to endorse you strongly, and you want to stay away from those people.
Wow,
So, however,
great insight.
what is another way of doing it? And Dr. Shahzad, Raza, and I were having a conversation a couple of days ago. That reflection during the training period is a way for your attendings to know what you're doing when they are not seeing you, or even when they're seeing you, how you are. These experiences are resonating with you. Say, for example, they have watched their attending using spikes for breaking a bad news. What reflection they had and how they incorporated or will incorporate into their practice. So these examples come from daily work and we don't pay attention to. And it's very difficult for busy clinician to write down those things each day for like several trainees you work with. It's not easy, and you can make a structure. And how to craft a ideal letter is another skill faculty need to develop. That is separate talk, and we need to have a conversation separately. But in short, this course has covered this part, and it has provided alternative strategies to incorporate your self-assessment in where the attendings can see what you're doing in the time you work with them. So that will be, I will skip it short. If you have any additional question, I'll be happy to answer.
Sure. Dr. Anwar, please, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Hussain, you brought up a very important point, but I must say somebody who writes a good number of letters every year for residency and fellowship candidates, I typically ask them to help me, give me 1 to 2 paragraphs with the unique strengths, and then I build my own letter around it. It just helps me tremendously so I don't miss the strong points which a candidate has. I do not tell them to write letter for me. I just tell them, give me your strengths and points in a couple of paragraphs. So it helps me write a craft a letter. Thank you.
Absolutely. I just want to echo that. I often ask them to send me their CV and write me 2 paragraphs, 2 paragraphs about your background and why you chose a specialty, and just experiences about, just so that I can kind of get to know about, their journey and their interest, and some self-reflection about their career goals. If we've had a conversation about that during the rotation, great. But it's helpful for me to know their career goals so that I can mention that for them in the personal statement. But I think when someone asks you to write a letter of recommendation, they do not mean for you to write a letter from start to finish, including, praising you all about. That's for them to do, right? Dr. Raza, can we hear from you as well, please?
Yeah, I mean, I have one comment on the previous question. Like a very famous name, and somebody works for a week with that person, and then write a letter. I think if somebody works for a week, and they're asking for a letter, and the letter is very, very strong, for example, you have already created some doubts on that. Okay, why in a week? What has happened here, which makes them a very strong letter recommendation? So we have to be very careful, especially from the students or who are applying, that if you spend with somebody for a long period of time, you have to get a strong letter from them. That's your key. That person is your key. You have to have good personal relation with that person. Like, you work hard for them, so you have to get good impression. But for a short period of time, you work for a week and you're expecting to write a Nobel Prize type of letter, that's not going to happen. Even if somebody writes it, it's going to be difficult for somebody to convince, like in a week, what did you do that makes letter like that? The second thing is, it's candidates who are foreign medical graduates. I've seen this problem, and it's been for 15 years. I'm seeing that a lot of letters are very generic, very, very generic. I think we all need the training. I do agree with that in the environment, but we learn a lot as well from other people's how they write the letters. In order to get a good letter, it's very important that if you are wherever you are doing your medical school practices, make sure the letter is personalized. It's for you. It doesn't should not have a generic language. So please be careful for these things, because that helps you a long way.
Thank you so much. My next question, I wanted to pose to Dr. Arshad. Dr. Arshad, as a program director, you've come across a lot of students, international medical graduates particularly, and local students, who, are at your esteemed program, and they would love to be able to be given the opportunity to secure an interview there and hopefully match, and also show their interest in that program, right? Especially people who've come from Pakistan, they've spent money, they've spent time, they've come across the world. They're here just to gain some experience so that they can show interest in a program, get good letters, get people who can vouch for them, and hopefully be successful in securing a residency spot. But oftentimes we see that uh, people can come across as being too intrusive, pushing boundaries, being too pushy. I think I speak for all of us on this panel. We see this quite often. What are ways of showing interest in a program without coming across as too pushy or too intrusive?
Dr. Bass, do you mean when they're rotating with the program?
When they're rotating with you, yes, on their rotation with you.
Right. You hit the spot. Meaning everybody who comes here, they want to awe you, and they're looking forward to a spot. We understand that perspective, but the most important thing, like you said, is to be genuine. When you're rotating with somebody, don't try to be what you're not. Okay. So first of all, is be yourself. If you're trying to to act too smart, we can see it. You've been doing this for like 15-20 years now. The most important thing that I see is punctuality. If the attending told you to be there at 8 o'clock, you should be there maybe maybe even an hour earlier. Okay, so you need to know what exactly you want from that rotation. If you want to maybe match at that program or a similar program, we are looking for all these different things in the resident. Punctuality is one of them. You need to know your patients. If you have been assigned a couple of patients, I would know everything about them. And then how you treat other people. How you're going to talk to the nurses, how you're going to talk to the staff. That is what we're looking for. How Rima said, you're going to do residency for 3 years, 4 years. We're going to teach you all the skills. What we're looking for is the human that we're going to hire, right? Is this person going to get along with other people? Is this person going to be teachable? Is this person going to be humble? Are they full of themselves? So what I would do is, be yourself. You cannot change your personality, but we're looking for somebody who is, a team player, obviously. When called in at 7 o'clock to cover for your, a resident fellow who called in sick, and I want to hear, yes, sure, I will be there. I don't want to hear, why am I being called? So just be yourself. Be a nice person. Do your work. Show interest. Do your homework. So you got to be learning, and don't be quiet in the back. You got to shine, because at the end, there's like 4,000 applicants, and we only have like 10 spots or 12 spots. So you have to shine, and the only way to do that is to be genuine. If you try to be something you're not, it's going to show. So I think that is the most important thing. And do your homework. If you're going to rotate with me, you need to know who I am. You need to go look what my interests are, where I come from. So try to make a connection. If you make a human connection, that's going to go so much further than anything else you're going to do.
That is great. Thank you. We can talk, a whole session just on this, I think, and it would still be not enough. I wanted to move on to the next question and open to the panel because I want to hear every single one of you say something. And it's the section that I had some slides on, but I think most importantly, hearing from you all. Can you see my slides? Okay.
Yes.
We just see one slide.
Right.
Mhm.
So, what are some things that applicants should do and not do during rotations that might affect their chances of matching in that program? You mentioned a lot of them, Dr. Arshad, but particularly, can we talk about things that applicants should not do? You mentioned, learn about your patients, it's very important, but also learn about the people you're rotating with. I had recently a colleague someone reached out to them, asking for a rotation with them, addressing them by not even the right name. It was Dr. X was being addressed by Dr. Z. And they were saying that, at least have the courtesy to, write the person's name right or learn a bit about them. I think, we all can kind of see a generic email that was sent across to 100 people versus what was actually sent to you. Dr. Unwer, could you please kind of shed light on maybe some things that applicants shouldn't do during their rotations? Again, because we're talking about securing good letters of recommendations. What are some things that might affect their chances of matching at that program?
Yeah, in the interest of time, I'll just share one example. So recently, a colleague told me that they accepted a student 7 months in advance for a rotation, and they have a specialized practice. And the student shows up without reading anything about that specialty. They have no clue what the tools are, what the rules of the games are. So then it takes you 2 to 3 weeks to at least give them some basic ABC. And I'm sure that the letter will reflect that this person came back unprepared and had no clue about patient's management. So please do not do that. If you're rotating with a specialist, especially in oncology, cardiology, nephrology, at least show the courtesy to spend few days and study about that. Thank you.
That's an excellent point, right? I mean, we spend so much money, time, we come all the way across the world to try to get that experience. And, a little bit of preparation on that side would have been so much helpful. Dr. Hussain?
Yeah, thank you so much. A couple of things I would mention. When people come for rotations, even medical students or acting intern or observers, so they've been watched by every single individual, which means interns are watching them, senior residents, chief residents. The gossiping outside the clinical rounds can reflect on kind of a person they are. For example, attending did a mistake during rounds, and you are making fun of the attending with the rest of the residents. The other example I will provide, a lot of talking and taking over the discussions and interrupting people when they're speaking. So this is commonly we have seen those etiquettes. They are not prevalent in some areas of the world than the others, but so that is second thing. Third important thing which I've noticed is communication, specifically in-person and electronic communication with program managers and coordinators. People don't understand how deep it could be. So we have deep sixed many applicants because program managers have told us this person did not do a professional communication with me. And they were not even considered for the interview, or or if they were interviewed, they were not ranked.
Well, that is very insightful, and I think it's a very different culture, right? So back home in Pakistan, particularly, oftentimes program coordinators can sometimes be kind of college clerks, or people who are just screening or assistants to programs. Whereas I think people don't realize, like, program coordinators here are like, they probably have more power than the program director in saying this person comes and this person doesn't, right? And I remember, I think one of the greatest things that helped me was the program coordinator at my neurology residency program. I just connected so well with them, and she was the one who actually told me, like, this is what you need to do in your personal statement, and but if you come across as red flag to them, that is a red flag at so many levels, right? Um, Dr. Arshid?
Yeah, that is absolutely true what you said. Sometimes we kind of underestimate their power, but it's funny how you said that. If you upset the program coordinator, your chances to match in that program is close to nil. No, absolutely close to nil, because they are part of the big meeting we have. So when we rank the residents, everybody sits in there, the core faculty, the APDs, the program coordinators, and then we go around the whole table. So it's like a round table for the applicants to know, and everybody's input is taken. So any red flag, you're out, because we have so many applicants to choose from. It's not like we have 10 people. We have hundreds of people to choose from. So your communication, your professionalism, your skills are more important than you came with 7 gold medals versus 2 gold medals. You all finished med school, you all finished your USMLE, so you're on the same boat at this point. So what is important is what you are as a human, as a team player, how you manage stress. If you got an email saying you cannot do this, how do you react to that? Do you make a big fuss, or how do you react to stress, to trauma, and stuff like that? That is more important than all your accolades that you have with 100 gold medals and stuff, because that doesn't matter once you're here. So that is really important. When we get graduates from Pakistan, for example, when I'm talking to you during the interview, I don't need you to tell me that you're first in your class. That's on your CV. I need you to tell me why you applied to my hospital out of the 1,000 hospitals in the country. What do you see here? And more than that, 2 things. What am I going to give you? What are you going to get from my program? And the second thing is, why should I keep you? What are you going to bring to us? Do you have a research background? I would like to hear about that. Why should, what I tell them in the end is, why should I rank you? I have 10 people today. Why should I pick you? So think about these things. Think about things that are important to you, and how you want to inspire the person, or you are the other person to say, hey, we really need this person in the program. That is more important than going over, like I said, 100 gold medals that you want. That's not important anymore.
Thank you
That
so
brought
much.
you here. That brought you to the interview, but now you're going to have to put more into that.
Definitely, very well said. The value of personal attributes, right, and how far they can go. Dr. Reem, I would
Abbas,
love to hear, particularly surgical specialties. I'm sorry. Sorry,
yeah.
Dr. Fuataj.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to. I think.
I'm sorry, we're in.
On the, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Are you guys able to hear? All right. Okay. So I just wanted to add to that point where I think during medical students rotation, when they come here for observership or elective, and how that translates into helping you. I mean, obviously, any negative interaction with anybody can hurt you, but the positive interaction can really help you as well. So each and every interaction is important. When you're here with the program secretary or other administrative staff of your attending that you're working with, or the unit clerk, those all interactions are important. So I'll give you an example of uh, interaction that I had, back in the several years ago, going through the match, where the program secretary, as I entered her room, had light music on, and she was listening to a singer. And apart from whatever else I needed from her, I just asked her who she was listening to, and I was like, "Oh, this is very good. I like it. Tell me more about this singer." And I didn't know that singer. I was like, "Oh, maybe I'll look it up and listen to this singer." It was sort of a casual interaction that I had. But later on during the interview process, as I was communicating back and forth with the program director, the program director actually uh, send me an email saying, "Oh, I hope you had a chance to listen to that particular singer." So that, tells me that interaction, that as minor as it may seem, actually made its way to the program director, and there was some conversation in the background about that little thing as well. So the point being, all your interactions are important, and the positive interaction can really help you with the staff, other than people who are actually interviewing or who are on your agenda for the day for interviews or during your rotation. So I just wanted to point out that all minor interactions are important.
Thank you so much. I just want to say, I know we're above time, but I was wondering if we could just go till 12:30, if everyone's okay with that. I think these are very important, helpful things. Is that okay with the panel if we just go until 12:30? Thank you so much. Dr. Reem Ahmed, please, I know oftentimes I, as a non-surgical person, often hear that, there's a very difference, sometimes a difference in culture between surgical specialties and medical specialties. There are some particular, do's and don'ts when it comes to surgical specialties. Can you please shed light upon that, and perhaps, a segue into my next question of also, what are some red flags that you may see in an applicant when they're rotating with you, or in their application that really concerns you about them?
Sure. So surgery and I think all of these points are, kind of, they go through the same thing, and I can talk. It's basically the same thing that everybody's saying. It applies to surgery as well, but I can be a little bit more specific in terms of what that means in the sense of a surgical setting. So I think one of the things that Dr. Arshad mentioned that was so important is not to be in the background. So don't hesitate to kind of like speak up and show yourself out, because you do need to stand out. I think it's very difficult to strike the balance between that and what Dr. Hasnain's saying, where you're like interrupting rounds and talking over people. It's definitely a little bit of a balance, and it's really, really hard as a medical student to understand where you need to be. So don't hesitate, like the first couple of days, just to watch what people around you are doing, if there are other students on the rotation, sort of how they are. But you do want to stand out a little bit, and don't feel like you're limited to what your rotation, like I'm here to do a rotation with this doctor in this specialty. Take the opportunity to look around. What else is there? Every single one of my elective rotations that I did here, I met the program director. Even if they weren't in the department that I was rotating in, I went to their ground rounds. I asked if I could do extra things. And same thing, even when you're on the rotation, if you're assigned to like 3 patients and one of the other patients is in shock, or sick, be like, can I offer to go check on that patient every hour and report back what their urine output is, because we're worried about it. Look for opportunities where you can be helpful. In surgery, really, the difference in culture is that there is a hierarchy, and there is more of a team sense of things. You're working less as an individual. If you can show yourself how you're integrated in that team, even if it's outside of what you're there to do or what you're assigned to do, that goes a long way.
Thank you so much. Dr. Shazad Reza, I would love to hear from you, please, also, if you can chime in, particularly, red flags you see in an application and things that, really alarm you, particularly as a mentor or as a program director.
Yeah, so there are two important things. And it's if the personality of a candidate is not matching the CV, that is the biggest red flag. There's a lot of fluff in the CV. We write so much details. I have done this and this. And when during the interview, when they ask, okay, what was your specific role in this particular project or in this volunteer program? I have seen they cannot explain it. What was happened? What was your role? And then they starting to tone down. Okay, well, I just did some editing and things. It's fine, but you have to be correct what you're writing on the CV and what your personality is. Personality and your CV has to match together. That's a successful sign of the successful candidate, and that's why we see a lot of times I have 20 interviews, I cannot match. Where is the problem is? This is one of the major problem that I see it. The second thing is CV. When we write the curriculum vitae, so think about that you've been doing 20 plus years working hard. I mean, and think about the candidates are spending just an hour, 2 hours, make their CV and it's done and submit it to an errors application. I think you have to spend a time on your CV because there are so many mistakes, punctuations, grammar, um, not proper explaining it, what exactly your roles are in those particular projects, how to cite the references, if you have done any research, if you have publications, the name of the journal is wrong. There is a lot of things on this aspect. So I personally feel that these are very important things for us that the candidates should work hard on their CV and their role, and whenever they write the applications for their rotations to someone, please don't cut and paste because we see a lot of students request for electives and we can figure it out that this is just a copy and paste statement. It has to be a little personalized. You spend time and write it up. Those are the things I think are very important when you reach out to the program or you're applying to be a successful match applicant. So I think that's what my few points.
Thank you so much. Dr. Arshad, you had your hand up, please.
Yeah, I wanted to add one more thing. As Dr. Raza mentioned, you have to focus on quality and not quantity. If I see a fresh graduate from 2024 and I see, 50 research papers, that is not even humanly possible. So don't get your name in every single research. Don't beg everybody around you to put your name in there. Okay. If you have 2 or 3, first author genuine research, I'm going to ask you. So if I ask you about one of those things and you have no idea what you're talking about, like Dr. Raza said, that's going to be, a red flag. Okay. But if you have like 2 things that you're passionate about, that when you start talking about, I see your face light up, that is going to be what I'm looking for. Because, you're going to start residency. We don't expect you to be trained. We're going to train you. So if you have interest, how to do the basics, you have some idea, we can polish that. But, I see IMG is trying to get their names on, like, I don't know, 100 research publications before they even set foot, we can see that's not right. So 2, 3, good quality, not quantity. And secondly, like Dr. Raza said, don't use ChatGPT in any of your stuff. Okay. You can ask maybe it for help. I don't know how that works, but maybe ask colleagues to edit your personal statement. But if you copy paste, if you used AI, it's evident. It doesn't take much to realize and pick that up. So be genuine, be yourself.
It is, and that is so true. It is very evident. And if I may just say, when I applied and mastered Hopkins, I had 3 research projects on my CV, not 50. But those 3 were in some of the most impactful clinical trials going around in the country in blood pressure management and intracerebral hemorrhage that everyone knew about. But it was very important work that I was very involved with in 3 well-known trials. And so it's more about the quality of my work in that was so much more than there were people who had many, many more publications than I did who didn't even land an interview. Very quickly, I think it's important for this audience to just get a glimpse of just this slide, these 2 slides. I think the summary of what we talked about today, right, is that the do's are to be genuine, and Dr. Simar should also reiterated this. market yourself strongly, keep a balanced portfolio, be the applicant that, has, uh, experience, clinical experience, electives, has voluntary work, some research, and kind of fills all the good aspects of the ARS portfolio. Apply early, and particularly I say this about electives and observerships. Dr. Unwin and I were talking about, and he made such a great comment about, we see applicants, IMGs, show such desperateness, right? They've graduated, they're here, it's July, August, September, the match is coming up. They graduated a year, 2, 3, 4 ago, and now they're just so desperately looking for observerships, right? To try to fill. And one thing that really stuck with me, Dr. Unwin mentioned that the time to be desperate was long ago, right? It was in your third, fourth year of medical school. It was when, you were in your medical school, kind of at least in the middle of your medical school, planning your electives, your early on, planning your experiences, or planning observerships early on. So try to apply as early as possible. Reach out to seniors, faculty you may know in residency program, and as Dr. Usher also mentioned earlier, like, research the programs well, right? When you're writing emails of interest to them, make sure you're brief, and no one has time for long emails. But research those programs well, tailor your emails and your communication to them as best as possible, and show a keen interest and dedication in your daily interactions, right? We've all, I think the common theme was, it's every little interaction, right? From the secretary to the coordinator to the nurse, to the other medical student on the rotation. It's every daily interaction during a rotation that really matters. It's so important to not just be polite, but also be very respectful of cultural norms and personal space in the US. And I think this is the greatest thing that we see a lot of IMGs struggle. And most importantly, the don'ts that we talked about today. Don't undersell yourself. There's so much that we have to show. Be proud of where you come from, right? And showcase yourself as best possible, but also don't oversell and falsify, like many of us said. And most importantly, do not pester. And I want to spend a second on that, but I'll come back to that. Don't miscommunicate, right? As Dr. Rosa was saying earlier, your CV should not have things that you haven't done. You shouldn't have, and even when you're emailing people, don't miscommunicate, as in, be respectful in your emails. Don't address someone by the wrong name. Look that person up. Don't be disrespectful of their boundaries. And coming back to do not pester. And this is the last point I want people to take away from. And again, lastly, I just want to open to the panel. We're here, inshallah, to help those who come after us, right? But oftentimes, we, have applicants who do not respect boundaries. They just pester. And we come from a culture, and I say this, having gone to med school in Pakistan, sometimes I feel that, just because you ask for something, the reason why you didn't get it is because you didn't ask hard enough, right? You didn't show enough interest. Keep asking, keep asking, keep asking until you get it, and you will get it, right? And it's like, it's the culture of pestering, right? I remember in class, people who got to work with the surgery professor were the ones who, kind of pulled their arm as much as possible and kind of just latched onto the leg as they walked. That is a very different culture than how we have here. And I think what the greatest message is, that no means no, right? Plain no, right? So when you reach out to someone and they say, hey, can I rotate with you? Or I'm already here at your hospital doing a rotation in, OBGYN, because that's what I want to apply to, but I'm looking to fill my time here. Can I come rotate with you in, pulmonology or oncology? And the other person says, sorry, I don't have anything. Or even if you're applying to them in the same specialty, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Or I'm sorry, I don't have any availability right now. Should the student keep pestering and saying, "Oh no, like, you need to take me," or tell me how who can take me or what to do? Those are common mistakes that I think, really, even for those of us who are here to help each other so passionately and help those who come up after us, I think even that can be discouraging to us as well, and we try to, run the other way. I will stop here, and just any final concluding comments from our panel about this: do not pester, be respectful of boundaries. no means no. Can I please just have, a sentence from each of you to just lastly touch upon that before we go?
I can add. So there was a question in a chat, and I think that's related to the don't. Can we ask after interview or rotation about the feedback? I think feedbacks are very important. It's the process and the metrics that we follow. I need the feedback. Students who are rotating, they need the feedback. Everyone needs the feedback for their personal growth. And I think it's important that we culturally understand what feedback actually means. And I do feel that there is sometimes there is a concern that when we try to give a feedback to the candidate, they can be emotionally very overwhelming and feel that something have done wrong. That's why my feedback is like that. I think we have to take this as a constructive, and it's an advice for everyone, because feedbacks help all of us. And the feedback is just to improve you so that you can don't do mistakes and progress from there. But it is something that we have to culturally also understand. It's not negative. It's eventually it's for your constructive growth. Thank you.
Dr. Hussain, just going down the line here. Sorry, can you unmute yourself, please?
I'm sorry. A couple of things. Cyber civility and digital professionalism, the role will continue to rise and increase. So make sure everybody, including myself, that on social media and on electronic communication, we keep our professionalism as we do in person. So that will be my advice. Last one.
Thank you. Dr. Anwar?
I will take a moment to thank you and congratulate you, all the applicants, for your passion, for your hard work, for your talent, for your ambition, for your desire to serve and serve better. And we all went through that journey. It's a process. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of hardships. So we celebrate and thank your mentors, your teachers, your parents, everybody who is supporting you. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Fawad Taj, any comments on any last bit of advice?
I think we've covered quite a lot in this webinar. Thank all of you. We will have another webinar in a week or two that will wrap up and our webinar series. We will discuss hopefully a lot more about interviews. There was one question about us. I'm not sure if he in the chat that we were able to answer. A question about a strong letter from a non-US faculty versus a weak letter from a US faculty versus a strong letter from non-US faculty. I'm not sure which one is better. So I think that's an important question, and I don't know if you can take that.
Yeah, sure. I think we addressed that earlier, that it doesn't matter where it's from or what country. It's a great letter is always better from someone who knows you really well. And Dr. Reem Ahmed, if you want to kind of reiterate, please, and also provide any final comments. I know you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, I think that it doesn't matter as much from, where the letter writer is from, unless you have a letter writer literally from specifically that institution. It's most likely not going to be somebody they know. And if it's somebody coming from somewhere else or from, the next state across, it's really not going to make that much of a difference. What I will say is that it almost looks, you have 3 or 4 letters, so you don't have just one. It almost looks suspicious to me that you're so interested in surgery or, for example, and so dedicated to it, and you don't have any letters from the surgeons at your institution. where you were as a medical student. So, if you showed that dedication, obviously that someone's going to have a longitudinal relationship with you. So hopefully they have a lot to say about you. But, if you have letters that are only that are not from your med school, there's nothing from your med school, to me, that looks a little off, that you spend, just a month with somebody and they're able to write you a letter, but you didn't ask the people who you're working with for years. So I think that having at least one letter from your medical school, and preferably from the specialty that you're applying to, is shows a good form of strength from that. Conclusion, I just want to say that, like you're saying, everybody works very, very hard to get to this point. And I think that's one important thing to remember, that, you have the grit and you have the determination to have got this far as well. There's nothing to prevent you from pushing over this last threshold to get to a US residency spot either. So really kind of just believe that attitude does kind of come through as well.
Thank you so much. If I just can add to that briefly, as you mentioned, the importance of making sure that, the people who are giving your letters are someone particularly who knows you, or especially from the institution you came from. I once had a student reach out to me that they wanted to do a neurology rotation with me, and it's a small world, and I think people don't realize that people know each other, right? And oftentimes people, someone came from a reputable medical school and said they were interested in neurology, and I reached out to the head of neurology at their department, and they said, "Oh, I don't know this person." I was like, "Wait, you actually wrote this person a letter?" They're like, "Oh, it was a very generic letter. I've never, this person has never iterated an interest in neurology." And so, whereas someone at their home institution who's very well, known in that department, I think would be very helpful. So at the end of the day, it's important to have a good letter from someone who knows you well, rather than, a very brief two-liner, which we've seen come across in applications from a big name. Last but not least, Dr. Saima Arshad, any concluding comments, please?
Um, well, I would like to say the same thing. All of you have worked really hard. We understand that, but you have to understand that there's everybody has worked really hard, and as you don't match 1 year, second year, third year, the bucket we're picking from is huge. So don't be disheartened. Just have faith and keep working hard, and you will find your spot. You will find what you want, and if you have a passion for it, there's nobody stopping you from it. But you might have to be patient and be persistent in a nice way.
Absolutely. Thank you all. First of all, I want to thank all of our panelists and speakers today. Jazakallah khair for lending your time on your weekend out of your personal time, and for preparing the materials we prepared to share today. We are extremely grateful for all of your support. And most importantly, I want to thank the audience, all the applicants, and the graduates and students who joined today. You are, I hope this shows you how much you all mean to us, to all of us. We are doing this, and these efforts are specifically to give back to our community, to help you all. You all have so much to be proud of, and mashallah, you made it this far. Inshallah, God willing, you'll make it further as well. I think uh, our faith is one of our strongest strengths, and we know that inshallah, when time comes, what's destined for us, will come to us, as long as we have the right approach and we put the efforts the right way in place. And last thing I will say is that we come from very similar humble beginnings like you all. If we've made it this far, and many others from the Pakistani and other international community have, having graduated from Pakistan myself, not even from one of the top two, three medical schools that are most known in this country, but still I feel that being on this part of the residency or the application spectrum, and having worked with so many students, I think I speak on behalf of all of us, that there is no reason to think that you are second to anyone. And you have so many great things to show. Never think that you're inferior to anyone. And inshallah, with your continued efforts and with just some guidance in the right way, inshallah, you all will have great success. And we wish you all, on behalf of Apnanio, we wish you all a very successful match process, and good luck. And this isn't the end. This was just part 2. Part 3, again, thanks to efforts from our Apna CME committee and Dr. Shahzad Reza for leading these efforts. I want to thank the entire organizing committee for leading these efforts. Our next session is going to be, and last session is going to be on choosing programs, acing interviews, and the NRMP matching process and the SOAP process as well. Dr. Shahzad Reza, if you can just last details. I know we initially planned for July 5th, but I think we're moving that further to July 19th or something, if you can correct me.
That's correct. And our goal is to bring different specialists from different fields. They will be here for a brief communications, but I want dermatologists, pediatricians, radiation oncologists, medicine colleagues, and in different fields. We'll try our best to get as many faculties to get their personalized experiences, how to apply in those specific fields. And that webinar is actually giving an answer of your specific field, because some of you wants to apply for neurology, some are psychiatry side, some wants to apply peds. I think we will. That's why we need more time so that we can try to get as many faculties for you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much again. Everyone have a great rest of your day. Assalamu alaikum.